Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Siti MARYAM Binti MURSHIDI, and for today's presentation, me and my group will discuss about ethical issues in auditing. Before we go further, I will explain about ethical audit. What is ethical audit? Ethical audit is an examination or inspection of system to ensure compliance with ethic-related requirements. In other words, it is an investigation into how well or poorly a company conforms to the ethical standard of its industry. For your information, ethical and compliance is linked. Ethics refer to the behavior, while compliance refer to the adherence to the legal regulation. However, ethical audit is different with other type of audit. This is because other type of audit usually deal with quantitative data, which data can easily measure. While for ethical audit, it is more qualitative and subjective in nature, which require consideration of multiple perspectives. Ethical audit also help to identify other behavior that fail to follow the guidelines, such as discrimination and unfair treatment to the workers. It also focuses on other areas such as client and impact of company to the environment, also how company disclose its financial information. Last but not least, it also compare both internal and external guidelines to the actual behavior with ethics-specific related requirement. Based on Section 110 Code of Ethics, there are 5 fundamental principles that professional accountants need to comply. Firstly, a member shall comply with principle of integrity that require an auditor to be straightforward and honest all the time, which means that an auditor cannot associate with report or communication that they believe the information have misleading statement. If an auditor aware of this situation, an auditor shall provide modified report. Next is a member shall comply with principle of objectivity, which means that a member cannot compromise a business judgment because of bias or conflict of interest. If this issue arises, an auditor shall not accept the engagement. Next is, an auditor shall always maintain the professional knowledge and skill at level required to ensure client receive competent auditor based on current technical and professional standard. Besides, an auditor shall always act diligent by having greater understanding about the business development and relevant technical. Next is, an auditor shall always comply with principle of confidentiality. An auditor shall respect the confidential information by not disclose it to the third party or any other parties. However, there are certain criteria where the confidential information can be disclosed even though it is not required by the law, which are to comply with quality review, to respond to an inquiry, also to protect the interests of the members. Next is professional behavior. An auditor shall act according to the law and regulation and avoid any action that will discredit their professions. Furthermore, when doing promotional or marketing activities, the auditor shall always honest and true by not exaggerating the claim for service offered and not make comparison to the work of others. That's all from me. I'm going to pass this presentation to the next presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Atirah Binti Harun, and I will continue our presentation with ethical dilemma by auditors. Auditors are responsible for ensuring that a company is operating ethically. They achieve this by analyzing data for accuracy and compliance to policy. Their work is crucial since failing to maintain organizational control may result in serious consequences, including fines, lost revenue, and even legal action. In most of cases, the auditor are always faced with an ethical dilemma is failure to maintain independence. Auditors should not have any loyalty that may raise questions about their neutrality. If they were to be hired by the organization they are auditing, their prior work should need to be held to the highest inspection to verify that no favoritism were given during the auditing process. The second issue is objectivity. The goal of an audit is to get an accurate opinions of a company's financial positions. As a result, the auditor's report must be wholly objective and impartial. The issue of objectivity may occur if the auditor have familiarity track with the company that they were hired to audit. In addition, external auditors also face with ethical dilemma related to confidentiality. Auditors will have access to a lot of company information, including the private information. Additionally, it has been discovered that external auditor may have disclosed private information to unauthorized person outside of the company for their own benefit or the benefit of third party. All information and evidence that an auditor sees while auditing a company must remain completely confidential because that information is private. The last ethical issue that external auditor may face is advocacy threat. An advocacy threat exists if the auditor is involved in promoting the client to the point where their objectivity is potentially compromised. Auditors may be required to perform duties other than auditing for their clients. They could be requested to offer some advising and act as an advocate on behalf of client. This action is not ethical for auditors as conflict of interest will be arise. Meanwhile, internal auditors usually face with ethical dilemma related to the pressure from management. Direct pressure could be made on head of internal audits to change the content if the audit reports to the audit committees contain information that do not reflect favorably on management. Indirect pressure might take the form of internal audit functions not being encouraged to adopt framework for internal auditors which mandates the functions independent and limit management involvement. That's all from me. I will pass to the next presenter to continue our presentation.
Next, I will continue to explain about independence for audit and review engagement. As an auditor, they are exposed to threats that could threaten their profession. They should develop a protection to minimize the threat to an acceptable level. Auditors must maintain their independence from the entity being audited as required by MIA bylaws in Part 4A, Independence for Audit and Review Engagement. Under Section 400, applying the conceptual framework to independence for audit and review engagement, professional accountants in public practice must be independent while conducting audit and review engagement because it is a public interest and it is mandated under the code. Objectivity and integrity are principles that are connected to principles. So, there are two types of independence which is required under Section 400.5, which is independence of mind and appearance. Independence of mind is a mental state that enables one to express conclusion without being influenced by factors that could impair professional judgment. While independence of appearance is avoidance of facts and circumstances so significant that a reasonable and knowledgeable third party would be likely to conclude that a firm's or an audit team member's honesty, objectivity and professional skepticism has been compromised. So basically under this part, the code requires the firms to follow the fundamental principles and be independent while conducting audit engagement. Therefore, this section outlines the exact requirements and application material for using the conceptual framework to maintain independence when performing such engagement. For example, for public entities, a firm conducting an audit engagement must be independent. To identify, evaluate and address threats to independent in respect to an audit engagement, a firm must use the conceptual framework outlined in section 120. Next is the period during which the independence is required is during the engagement period and during the period covered by the financial statements. Threats to independence arise when a non-assurance service is offered to an audit client before or after the period covered by the financial statements, but before the audit team commences the audit and the service is not permitted throughout the engagement period. So, the actions that could be taken as a safety standard to deal with these threats is using experts who are not on the audit team to carry out the service, having the audit and non-assurance activities reviewed by qualified reviewer as necessary, or appointing different company outside the network to review the outcomes of the non-assurance services. And lastly, there are also other requirements stated in Section 400 for network firms, mergers and acquisition presentation. Next, I will pass my presentation to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Farisha. Now I'll be presenting about a case that is related to these ethical issues in auditing, and the case that I choose is Arthur Andersen and Enron. In this case, according to an SEC investigation, the company's CEO and former CEO concealed billions of dollars in debt off the balance sheet of the business, and they had exerted pressure on Arthur Andersen, which is the company's auditing firm, to ignore this problem. Arthur Andersen was accused of applying reckless standards in its audits because of a conflict of interest over the significant consulting fees generated by Enron. Arthur Andersen received $25 million in audit fees and $27 million in consulting fees. The auditor's methods were questioned for either being carried out only to collect its annual fees or for lacking of competence to adequately analyze Enron's revenue recognition, special entities, derivatives, and other accounting practices. This is because receiving a huge consulting fees compromised the independence and objectivity of auditors. The management of Enron put pressure on Andersen's auditor to postpone recognizing the charges from the special purpose entities as the company's credit risks are revealed. Andersen also destroyed many tons of relevant documents and deleted nearly 30,000 emails and computer files after the news of SEC investigations of Enron were made public. This act of Arthur Andersen raised suspicions of cover-up. As we can see in this case, when Arthur Andersen received a high consultant fee, the auditor of Arthur Andersen has breached Section 110 Fundamental Principle, which is Section 112, the Principle of Objectivity, Section 113, Professional Competence and Due Care, and lastly Section 310, which is the Conflict of Interest. Also, Arthur Andersen has breached Section 111, Principle of Integrity, and Section 115, Professional Behavior, when they shared the documents and delete emails that is related to its audit of Enron. That's all from me. I'm going to pass to ALIAH to discuss about the next case.
Thank you, NURUL Nadia. Hi, my name is ALIAH. Now I will be presenting about a case that also related to this ethical issue in auditing. The case that I choose is Sharina Muhammad Iqbal, a partner of PKF Malaysia. According to the case, the Securities Commission's Audit Outside Board has publicly reprimanded Sharina Muhammad Iqbal for breaching Section 31Z, Subsection 1, Subsection B of the Securities Commission Malaysian Act 1993. Securities Commission said Sharina has failed to comply with the international standard on auditing. As we can see in this case, Sharina has breached Section 110 Fundamental Principle, which is 115 Professional Behavior, and Section 30-160 responding to non-compliance with laws and regulation. As the engagement partner responsible for the audit of the public interest entity, Sharina had failed to perform sufficient audit procedures and obtain sufficient audit evidence to support the audit opinion in relation to the ability to continue as a going concern. The Securities Commission said Sharina did not file an appeal against the AOB's decision within the prescribed time provided in the SCMA. Next, we move to the importance of ethical in professional accounting. Professional accountants' attitudes and behaviors contribute significantly to the economic well-being of their community and country. They share common goals, which is to perform their duties and responsibilities and to attain the highest levels of performance by the ethical requirements. So, integrity is the first importance of ethical in professional accountants. The ethics code ensure that all firms or personnel act with integrity and honesty in their interaction with clients and other professional relationships. The ethics code prevents accountants and auditors from identifying themselves with any information that may be misleading or damaging to the clients or the organization. Next, professional accountants must follow all the regulating bodies' rules and regulation. This will aid the company's professionalism while also ensuring that the financial statements are a fair and accurate representation of the company's status. Failure to follow the ethics code can harm the company's reputation and perhaps lead them to legal problems. That's all from me. I'm going to pass to NURUL to discuss about the other two importance of ethical in professional accountants. Thank you.
Thank you, ALIAH. Now I'm going to continue about the third reason on why ethical is important to professional accountants, which it is inherent to accounting profession. This is because ethics and accounting go hand in hand with the accounting profession. As an auditor, it is important that we make neutral, unbiased decisions so that the audit will give the company credibility and allows the public to trust in the accuracy of the results and the integrity of the accounting profession. Second, all information needs to remain confidential because any disclosure of any financial information during, for example, merger or an acquisition by an accounting professional would violate the trust code and would consider unethical. Also, the existence of ethics code is also to prevent a firm from doing this unless there is a legal reason for doing so. So that's all from me. I'm going to pass back to Siti MARYAM to conclude our presentation.
As for conclusion, a professional accountant play a vital role in building up the economy of their communities and the country. Furthermore, an auditor should always act independently to avoid any ethical problem that is able to discredit the auditing profession, such as Enron and Arthur Andersen case.